Here we are in episode 2 of my quality recap series. So before we get into sulfuric acid, we need to make an adjustment to the red circuits. So the first section here is only making quality, and I decided to filter these splitters to also only be quality. We also need to turn the bus, and I decided not to use this last section since when we turn the bus, we're going to have some cliffs in the way. So the sulfur and sulfuric acid will be the last build that we have on the top section here. I decided not to put sulfur on the bus because the only reason we really need it is for sulfuric acid. And we need the sulfuric acid for blue circuits and possibly uranium mining later. The sulfur just needs petroleum gas and water. And because the liquids cannot have quality, we will not be adding any quality modules to the sulfur. The sulfuric acid, the water, and the petroleum gas cannot be quality. We will, however, need to be bringing in some iron plates, and that means that this build will only be taking the regular iron plate, so there will be a little bit of an excess of the iron plate building up. So now that we have the sulfur and sulfuric acid, we need to turn the bus, which has been using quite a bit more of our resources. We need a lot of belts to be able to make this turn and to just have this bus in general. So now that we have sulfuric acid on the bus, the next thing that we're going to need to make is pipes. The pipes were something that I decided to add because we were going to need quite a few different machines, or it is needed in quite a few different builds. The other option was that I was possibly going to add engine units onto the bus. I did ultimately decide to make the pipes instead. So because this is going to be possibly a little bit more permanent, I'm going to be adding in the ability to get all the way up to legendary. It is possible to make pipes with the foundry later, but that's kind of a reset on quality. So I haven't decided yet, but we might end up leaving the gears and the pipes as is. Next up is blue circuits, and we need blue circuits for a lot of different items, and most importantly, the rocket components. So we need sulfuric acid, green circuits, and red circuits. And normally I like to bring in a full belt of green circuits and another belt that has half green circuits and half red circuits. But because we're adding everything back onto the bus, I decided that we were just going to be dealing with full belts and not merging any belts. So I do have a full belt of green circuits and a full belt of red circuits going into each of the branches, and then 2 green belts coming into the build. This does start to cause problems when we try to get everything back onto the bus, but this is generally a problem that we do manage and we will struggle with later. As you can see, it's a little difficult getting it back onto the bus. And it's around this time that we start running into some more of the major quality problems that we'll start having. So we're not consuming any of the quality copper, and since it is getting backed up, we are not producing any green circuits. This is largely because the bus isn't moving, but once we get the bus moving again, then the green circuits do continue. I did end up determining that the root cause was that we're adding the iron plates from the steel build back onto the bus, but most of the quality in this build is being consumed by the steel itself. So because we don't have quality iron plates going into some of the other builds, we are not consuming the quality copper. Now we have LDS, which is another rocket component. We have some problems with this as well since we need a lot of copper, and this is going to start to solve some of our copper problems with the quality. I have 2 full belts of copper coming in, as well as a full belt of steel and a full belt of plastic. Getting these back onto the bus is also going to be a problem. I opted to bring in 2 full belts of copper and only export 1 belt of copper. And so now we have 4 items being exported back onto the bus. 1 is plastic, the other is copper, 1 is steel, and LDS. Hopefully this will start to solve some of our copper problems, but we will have some solutions later as well. Next up is engine units. So the thing that we need engine units for the most is going to be electric engine units. So I decided to have these 2 builds be kind of paired together since we're not putting engines on the bus. The engines need steel, gears, and pipes, and we're going to be making quality out of this. So these will contain quality modules. It's also a little bit more of a permanent build, so we are adding in epic and legendary machines as well. So I decided that since we're not having this on the bus, that I was going to have the output of the engines wrap into the electric engine unit build and then wrap back into the engine unit build so that we could have a complete roundabout circuit. And the hard part will be trying to limit the amount of quality that we have going onto those, since they're going to be, it's going to be making different qualities at different quantities. After I set these builds up though, I did decide to make a blueprint of the central line that the engine units are going onto. And after I removed everything, I added back in the belt so that I could do the math on how many items this belt loop could contain. Then I decided to use some combinators set up for each of the individual qualities or potential qualities, and have the inserters that are outputting those qualities be limited if there were too many of that quality on the bus. So as an example, if we have too many uncommon quality, the uncommon quality assemblers will not add anything back onto the line. Obviously, this is not going to prevent quality from being added onto this line, since the normal quality will occasionally be adding in some of the uncommon quality itself, but it will kind of try to start limiting what we have going out. So again, while it won't prevent it from happening, it will ease up on the possible quality problems that we have. So other than the steel gears and pipes that are needed for engine units, we also need green circuits for the electric engine units. The electric engine units need green circuits, they need the engine units from the build next door, and they need lubricant. Anytime you're dealing with pipes and belts, it is often a pain, but we made it work. So we also want to unlock some of the uranium mining. So I'm going to grab some sulfuric acid from our starter base, and I made some I handcrafted some solar panels and brought those with me so that we can get just enough power to have a single miner be able to mine a single uranium. So using the sulfuric acid, we now are able to make everything that we need for nuclear power. I mostly needed this for the steam turbines for Vulcanus. I also decided that we need more power in general, so I did increase the amount of power by adding another coal mine. And the coal mine is not going to be getting quality. It would probably be fine adding in quality coal to these boilers. But ultimately I decided that it was fine that we didn't have it. I also future-proofed it by making sure that we could have it for red belts. It is set up for red belts, sorry. We also need some stone brick and some concrete. So I'm going to need some extra stone, and the stone will have quality. So I tapped a mine to the south and dragged 2 belts all the way back to near where our copper and iron smelting is happening. So I did decide that instead of having a fresh build, I would just take a portion of the steel build and copy that and use that as kind of a template, since it works over there and it should work over here. We're also going to take the stone and add that back into itself, similar to what we did with the iron plates with the steel build, which makes this a lot easier to set up. So yeah, we do have some stone being wrapped back around, and you just kind of need to make sure that it prioritizes the items that are being added back onto the line. That way you can make sure to capture all of the quality. And the main reason why we had to do this was because you need 2 stone for every 1 stone brick. It works with the iron ore into the iron plates, since it is just a 1-to-1. But we also want to make sure that each of the items is only collecting what we are wanting it to collect. So we did limit the inserters for the stone brick for each of the qualities that we're going to be using. So similar to other builds that have a single item coming in, we needed some iron ore here, and since it is quality, we also need that to loop back around. Both the iron ore and the stone brick will be looping back around in the concrete build. We are adding quality to both the stone brick and the concrete build so that we can have them for various items that we're going to need to make later on. Another thing that we needed for the concrete was water. Since we are making the concrete and the stone brick at the corner where the bus is going to be wrapping back around, it was a little bit of a pain to get this back onto the bus. But, you know, that's, like I said, generally problems that we've been trying to deal with the entire time. We are very close to having the bus wrap completely back around onto itself. Coming up, we will have some shopping mall items being created, hopefully. It was suggested that I should just do a bot mall, but that's not how I roll. I'm going to be trying to do better than that and just use belts. So that is going to be it for this episode. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one.